Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today I want to talk about the changes that were made to cluster jewels, large and medium cluster jewels in the 3.11.1 patch, because this is a considerable buff to character power and is probably going to mean that you are going to want to have 2 large cluster jewels in your passive tree on most builds. So what changed? Well, cluster jewels were given a massive buff whereby the possibility of additional jewel sockets on them was changed to be an enchantment instead. It's no longer a possibility, it's automatic. And so you see here that this was item level 59. Under the old system, 1 jewel socket was all you could get. It would be a medium jewel socket and it would be all that you could possibly get on anything that was item level 74 or below. And so effectively, this cluster jewel was a clusterfuck. It was going to be stuck with 1 jewel socket and probably not be used by anyone. Now, and you can actually vendor it to make this change happen immediately. It's going to no longer count as one of its 4 mods, the jewel sockets, and it's automatic, and you get 2 of them. So that's item level independent. This is actually going to create a really strange environment where, for a number of jewels, the best outcome is actually going to be on a lower item level cluster jewel, where you're going to be more likely to roll certain mods if they're available on low item levels. If the desirable ones are available there, you're going to be more likely to roll them. Anyway, you'll notice that for legacy cluster jewels, so ones that were created before 3.11.1, there's a vendor recipe in place. You can just simply sell it, and it will remember the other mods on the item. That's going to create a couple of 2 mod rares, like you'll see with this cluster jewel, which you could then in turn vendor if you wanted to under the scour recipe, and get, I think it's a scouring orb. Yes, it is. It's a scouring orb when you vendor a 2 mod rare. You can do that if you want. You probably don't want to, because these cluster jewels are a bit better. So I'm taking a number of cluster jewels that I had before the patch and just simply vendoring them. This one is going from having Fuel Fight, 2 jewel sockets as a mod, and 17 evasion and 3 lightning resistance as a mod. Now it's going to have it's going to be a 3 module instead of a 4 module, and the 2 added sockets is automatic. So at the top end, this is going to tremendously increase the power level of the top jewels that are available. So now, because you're no longer going to have a mod tied up in adding jewel sockets onto it, you're going to be able to get some truly phenomenal cluster jewels as a consequence of that. Something that's going to be interesting to see what comes out of it. Just a fair warning, don't vendor 5 of the same rarity at once, otherwise you will not be happy with the outcome. So I'm going to turn in those 4, and then turn in the 5th one, now that I can safely do so. And then we can have a quick thought as to what we might actually want to do. That's already been done, so there's no point in doing that one. Now at this point, we'll have a think as to what you can do in terms of rolling these further. So you can get them with 4 mods plus 2 jewel sockets, as you see here. That's what you're going to generally want to have. And then, these mods are not particularly good. You can get much better than this, and the higher the item level of the jewel, the better that will be. However, it's all going to come down to what you can roll in terms of notables. And for this, what we're going to want is to jump across to the website PoEDB. PoEDB is a data mining website, so it basically reverse engineers from the game's game program files the statistics of how likely various things are to roll. This weight is a measure of how rare the mod is. The higher the number is, the more common it is. And it'll give you a bit of a sense as to what's available. But also, very importantly, it will tell you the tags that exist on a various mod. These can't be found in-game. They really should be able to be found in-game, but they can't. And they will tell you how you might go about rolling something. So let's say that you wanted corrosive elements as a mod on one of your jewels. Well, it's a prefix, and it has a very low weighting, so you're not likely to get it by using alteration orbs or chaos orbs. But you'll notice that it has the tags fire, cold, lightning, and elemental. we could use fossils to make it more likely to roll these. In particular, what we could do is, because it is a mod that is a lightning mod, we could use I believe it's a metallic fossil, which is the fossil that makes you 10 times as likely to roll any lightning mod, but absolutely blocks a different type of mod as well. And you'll see here that it makes it impossible to roll physical modifiers and makes you 10 times as likely to roll any mod that has the lightning tag on it. So that is a starting point. Then we're also going to have a look and see what else we've got. We have a fire tag and a cold tag. These don't actually help us, because if we were to use a scorched fossil, which makes you 10 times as likely to roll any fire mod, it outright bans all of the cold mods. So that's of no use to us. We do pick up the elemental tag. This makes it, if you use a prismatic fossil, you are 10 times as likely to roll anything with an elemental tag, but you are also 5 times as likely to roll anything that has any one of fire, cold, and lightning tags, but doesn't have an elemental tag. This actually isn't all that beneficial because so many things have the elemental tag here. So basically all we can really do is use a metallic fossil. That will make us 10 times as likely to roll any of Vengeful Commander, Sadist, or Corrosive Elements, which will help us overall by quite a bit. So if we had one of these jewels, we would be smashing it with metallic fossils and hoping to then roll something that has corrosive elements in conjunction with something else that's usable. You're not necessarily going to get anything perfect with that. The alternative, though, is to play around with the harvest crafting, and particularly to use effects that add and remove lightning mods from an item. So if you had one of these large cluster jewels with increased fire damage on it, you could exalt lightning damage on it. So use an augment a lightning modifier to try to target this specific mod. Or if you rolled Vengeful Commander instead, you could then use remove a lightning mod and add another lightning mod to try and hit this. Ultimately, you're not necessarily going to get it super easy, because there are also other lightning mods that you can roll as well. Lightning mods that add lightning resistance to the small passives. But this is going to be the way that I would target this mod. So I would start this by using metallic fossils only, and smashing this cluster jewel with them over and over again until I either got corrosive elements or I got something that was too good to roll over. Lastly, I want to point out that there is a minimum level item level of 75 on this mod. You'll need to be aware of this for any of the cluster jewels that you are trying to roll. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. There's a lot more that can be said about rolling specific types of cluster jewels and how you can harvest craft on them, but that would be an entirely different video. If there's a specific combination of mods that you'd be interested in getting on a cluster jewel, so maybe for instance you would like to see how you would go about rolling a jewel that has Prismatic Heart and Sadist at the same time on a specific type of cluster jewel, then ask about that and I'll give you some advice on that if I can think of something. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it there, and I hope you have a good one.